The dust never settled on Jake Miller's ranch anymore. 3 years since the last visitor, 3 years since Earth became a forgotten backwater in the galactic trade routes. The aliens had come, surveyed humanity, deemed them unremarkable, and moved on. Now Jake stood on his porch, scanning the horizon where red soil met purple sky, watching his automated harvesters crawl across fields of gene-modified wheat that nobody wanted to buy. The ship came down hard, trailing black smoke and fire. Jake grabbed his pulse rifle from inside the door and ran toward the crash site, his boots kicking up clouds of iron-rich dust. The vessel was small, sleek, nothing like the massive cargo haulers that used to stop for supplies. Its hull bore scorch marks and what looked like weapons fire. The entry hatch hissed open before Jake reached it. She stumbled out, blue skin gleaming with something that might have been blood. Her species, Jake recognized them from the news feeds before the communications went dark. Zenthari, warriors, conquerors of the Andromeda sector. This one wore armor that had been shredded by energy weapons, and she collapsed before taking 3 steps. Jake caught her, surprised by how light she was despite being 7 feet tall. Her 3 eyes focused on him, pupils dilating. She spoke in her native tongue, harsh and guttural, then switched to broken English. They follow. You must run. Who's coming? Jake dragged her toward his house, looking up at the sky. Nothing yet. Craver hunters. They track me. They will burn this place. She tried to stand, failed. I carry data. Alliance secrets. Cannot let them have it. Jake got her inside and sealed the doors, activating the ranch's old defensive shields, relics from when frontier worlds needed protection from raiders. How many? 6. Maybe more. She pulled a small crystal from her armor. This is why they hunt. Proof of treaty violations. Proof the Craver plan to invade human space. Human space? Jake laughed bitterly. Lady, there is no human space anymore. Everyone left. Earth's a ghost world. Her eyes widened. No. Impossible. Humans are strategic reserve. Neutral zone. Protected. Protected by who? Galaxy moved on. Jake checked his weapons inventory. 1 pulse rifle, 2 plasma pistols, some old kinetic firearms. Against trained Craver hunters. We need to move. I've got a bunker. No time. She gripped his arm with surprising strength. They are here. The sky lit up with entry fire. 6 ships, just like she said, dropping through the atmosphere in attack formation. Jake's sensors screamed warnings. The shields wouldn't hold against military-grade weapons. Can you fight? Jake asked. She pulled herself up, retrieving a weapon from her damaged armor. I am Zenthari. We always fight. The first shots hit the shields, and the house shook. Jake moved to the window, calculating angles and approach vectors. The Craver were spreading out, trying to surround them. Professional, efficient, deadly. They expect you to be alone, Jake said, forming a plan. They don't know about me. 1 human will not matter to them. Jake smiled grimly, loading his weapons. Then they don't know humans very well. The Craver ships landed in a perimeter around the ranch. Through his scope, Jake counted 8 warriors disembarking, each one massive, armored, carrying weapons that could level buildings. They moved with practiced precision toward the house. Jake opened a hidden panel in his floor, revealing something he had hoped never to use again. Military-grade equipment from his service days before he retired to this forgotten world, before everything went quiet. Maybe you aliens forgot about us, he said, pulling on tactical gear. But some of us remember what we were. The Zenthari warrior watched him with new respect. You were soldier, Marine, and this is my home. Jake checked his weapons one last time. Nobody burns my home. The first explosion rocked the shields. The Craver were testing defenses, probing for weaknesses. They would find them soon. The shields were old, not designed for sustained military assault. When the shields fall, Jake said, we make them regret coming here. She nodded, understanding. For honor, for survival. Jake took position at the window, targeting the nearest Cravor, and to remind the galaxy why you don't mess with humans on their own dirt. The shields flickered, sparked, and died. The Cravor charged forward, and Jake Miller, forgotten rancher on a forgotten world, reminded the universe that humanity had never truly been defenseless. They had just been waiting. The first Cravor through the door never saw the plasma mine. The explosion took out 2 more behind him, their armor melting under the superheated blast. Jake fired through the smoke, his pulse rifle finding targets with practiced accuracy. Years of quiet ranching had not dulled his combat instincts. The Zenthari warrior fought beside him, her movements fluid despite her injuries. She fired her weapon in controlled bursts, each shot perfectly placed. The Krever were tough, but they were not expecting real resistance. They had come for one wounded warrior. They found 2 fighters who refused to die. "Left side," the Zenthari shouted. Jake spun, dropping a Krever who had breached through the kitchen. The warrior's return fire was devastating at close range. Armor meant nothing when the person wearing it was already dead, but more kept coming. Jake's sensors showed 3 ships still circling above, ready to provide support. This was not sustainable. They needed a better strategy than just shooting everything that came through the door. "A crystal," Jake said between shots. "Can you transmit the data?" "Need communications array." Strong signal. Jake's mind raced. The nearest functional array was in the old settlement, 40 miles east. Abandoned for 2 years, but the equipment might still work. "Can you move?" She limped to the window, firing at advancing Krever. "I can move." "Then we run." Jake activated his emergency protocols. The house defenses switched to automated mode, turrets deploying from hidden compartments. It would buy them minutes, at best. He grabbed emergency supplies and headed for the garage where his transport waited. They made it to the vehicle as the house erupted in weapons fire behind them. The automated defenses were doing their job, forcing the Krever to take cover. Jake gunned the engine, the transport's powerful thrusters kicking up a wall of dust as they accelerated away from the ranch. Plasma bolts chased them, superheating the air. One of the Krever ships broke from formation to pursue. Jake pushed the transport to maximum speed, weaving between rock formations and gullies he knew by heart. This was his land, his advantage. "They are gaining," the Zenthari warned, firing back at the pursuing ship. Jake did not slow down. Instead, he aimed for the narrow canyon ahead, a crack in the earth barely wide enough for his transport. "Hold on!" They shot into the canyon at full speed. The walls blurred past, close enough to touch. Behind them, the Krever ship tried to follow. Too wide, too fast, not familiar with the terrain. It clipped the canyon wall and spiraled out of control, crashing into the rock face in a ball of fire. 5 left, Jake said grimly. The ship explosions would bring the others. He had to reach the settlement before they caught up. The transport screamed across the wasteland, its engine pushed beyond safe limits. The Zenthari warrior worked on the crystal, preparing the data for transmission. Her fingers moved quickly despite the pain Jake could see in her expression. "Why did you stay?" she asked suddenly. "When others left Earth?" Jake kept his eyes on the terrain. "This is my home. I do not run. Even when running is logical, especially then." Jake swerved around a boulder field. "Someone has to remember what this place was, what we were. The galaxy believes humans are weak, passive, content to fade away. The galaxy is wrong." Jake spotted the settlement ahead, its buildings dark and silent against the horizon. They mistook patience for weakness, quiet for surrender. 2 more Krever ships appeared on his sensors, closing fast from different angles. They were trying to cut him off before he reached the settlement. Jake calculated trajectories and speeds. It would be close. He pushed the transport harder, ignoring the warning lights flashing across his dashboard. The engine screamed in protest, but it held. The settlement grew larger, closer. The Krever ships were right behind them, weapons charging. Jake spun the transport sideways, sliding to a stop in a cloud of dust directly beside the communications building. "Go. I will hold them." The Zenthari warrior did not argue. She grabbed the crystal and ran for the building, her movements swift despite her injuries. Jake took position behind the transport, using it for cover as the first Krever ship opened fire. The transport's armor held against the initial barrage. Jake returned fire with everything he had, aiming for the ship's weapon pods. He missed, but forced the pilot to break off the attack run. The second ship came in from the opposite direction, trying to catch him in a crossfire. Jake rolled behind a building, pulse rifle tracking the ship. He fired, hitting the ship's thruster assembly. It was not enough to bring it down, but it forced the pilot to land. Good. On the ground, Jake had a chance. The Krever warriors emerged from their ships, 4 of them now, heavily armed and coordinating their approach. Professional soldiers, just like the ones at the ranch. But Jake had the advantage of knowing the settlement layout. Every building, every alley, every firing position. He moved through the structures like a ghost, firing from unexpected angles, then disappearing before they could return fire. Guerrilla tactics, hit and run, make them waste ammunition, make them angry. Angry soldiers made mistakes. One Krever pushed too far ahead, trying to flank. Jake was waiting. 2 shots, center mass. The warrior went down hard. 3 left on the ground, plus whoever was still in the ships providing overwatch. Inside the communications building, Jake could hear equipment powering up. The Zenthari warrior was working fast. He just needed to buy her more time. A plasma bolt nearly took his head off. Jake ducked, returning fire. The Craver were adapting to his tactics, moving more carefully, covering each other. He needed to change strategy. Jake pulled a grenade from his belt, an old fragmentation model from his service days. He cooked it for 2 seconds, then threw it high, bouncing it off a building toward the cover position. The explosion forced them into cover, giving Jake seconds to relocate. But there were still 3 of them, and his ammunition was running low. Jake checked his rifle. 15 shots left in the power pack. After that, he would be down to pistols and kinetics, against warriors in full armor. The odds were not good. But Jake had faced bad odds before. Every human had, throughout history. It was what they did with those odds that defined them. He heard the communications array activate, its old system struggling to life. The Zenthari warrior was transmitting. If she could get the data out, warn human colonies that still existed somewhere beyond Earth, this would all be worth it. The Craver heard it too. They stopped advancing on Jake and turned toward the communications building. Their priority had shifted. They would try to stop the transmission, kill the warrior, destroy the evidence. Jake could not allow that. He stepped into the open, firing rapidly, drawing their attention back to him. All 3 Craver warriors turned, their weapons swinging toward his position. This was going to hurt. The first volley of plasma fire forced Jake into a hard dive behind a low wall. The concrete exploded above his head, showering him with debris. He fired blind, just to keep them honest, then scrambled to a new position. His rifle died. Power pack drained. Jake dropped it and drew both pistols, their familiar weight of comfort. These were older weapons, kinetic rounds instead of energy, but at close range they would punch through armor if he aimed for the joints. 1 Craver was advancing on the communications building, the other 2 keeping Jake pinned. He could not let that warrior reach the building, could not let the transmission be interrupted. Jake ran from cover, both pistols blazing. He was exposed, vulnerable, but speed was his only advantage now. The Craver fired, plasma bolts tracking his movement. Jake felt heat, pain, his left shoulder burning where a shot grazed him. He did not stop. 20 feet from the warrior, heading to the building. 15. Jake fired both pistols, aiming for the knee joint. The rounds hit true. The Craver stumbled, armor compromised. Jake fired again, neck seal this time. The warrior went down. But Jake's momentum carried him into the open. No cover, the other 2 Craver with clear shots. Time seemed slow. He saw their weapons tracking him, saw the plasma building and the firing chambers. There was nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. The window of the communications building shattered outward. The Zenthari warrior emerged firing, her weapon cutting through the air where the Craver stood. She had finished the transmission and come to save him, just as he had saved her. Together, they finished the fight. The last 2 Craver fell under their combined fire, armor finally failing against sustained assault. Silence fell over the settlement, broken only by the crackling of damaged equipment and the hum of the transmission array. Jake collapsed against a wall, his shoulder bleeding freely now, adrenaline wearing off and pain flooding in. The Zenthari warrior limped over, her own injuries reopened from the fighting. The data is sent, she said. Human military command will receive it within hours. The galaxy will know of the Craver treachery. Good. Jake pressed his hand against his shoulder, trying to slow the bleeding. Maybe they will finally remember we exist. They will remember. She looked at him with something like respect, maybe even admiration. You fought like a Zenthari warrior. With honor. With courage. I fought like a human. Jake managed a pained smile. We are tougher than we look. The remaining Craver ship circled overhead, but it did not attack. Without ground support, the pilot was vulnerable. After a moment, it turned and fled into the atmosphere, retreating to report the failure of the mission. They will send more, the warrior said. Let them come. Jake pulled himself to his feet, wincing. Next time, I will be ready. You cannot fight the whole Craver fleet. Watch me. Jake looked out at the horizon, at his ranch in the distance, at the planet that everyone had abandoned. This is human space. It always has been. And we defend what is ours. The Zenthari warrior helped him walk back toward the transport. Her ship was destroyed, her mission compromised, but the data had reached its destination. The warning had been sent. And she had learned something important about the species the galaxy had dismissed as weak. "What is your name, human?" "Jake Miller." "I am Kira of House Zenthar. I owe you a life debt." She helped him into the transport. "When my people come for me, I will tell them what happened here. I will tell them about the human who would not run, who would not surrender. Tell them we are still here." Jake started the engine, pointing the transport toward home. "We are not forgotten. We are just waiting." "Waiting for what?" Jake smiled grimly, thinking of the data now speeding toward human colonies, warning them of the Cravor threat, reminding them that Earth still existed, for everyone to remember why they should not have underestimated us. The transport raced across the wasteland, carrying a wounded human and a wounded alien who had learned the same lesson. Humanity might be quiet, might be forgotten, might have withdrawn from the galactic stage, but they had never been defenseless. They had never been weak. And when pushed, when threatened, when their home was in danger, they showed the galaxy exactly what they were capable of. Jake Miller's ranch was burning when they arrived. The automated defenses finally overwhelmed, but the structure still stood. It could be rebuilt. Everything could be rebuilt. As they watched the fires burn, sensors detected incoming ships, many ships. For a moment, Jake tensed, ready for another fight. Then Kira touched his arm. "Zenthari signatures, my people." She looked relieved, but also concerned. "They will have questions. Let them ask." Jake checked his weapons, reloading what he could. "I have got answers." The Zenthari fleet descended, massive warships that made the Craver hunters look like toys. They landed in formation around the ranch, and warriors poured out, surrounding the area, securing the perimeter. An officer approached, tall and imposing, his armor marked with symbols of high rank. He spoke to Kira in their language, his tone sharp, questioning. She responded calmly, gesturing to Jake, to the battlefield, to the destroyed Cravor ships scattered across the property. The officer's three eyes widened as he listened. Finally, he turned to Jake and spoke in perfect English. "You are the human who protected my captain?" "I am the human who protected my home," Jake corrected. "She just happened to be here." The officer studied him for a long moment. "You killed 6 Craver hunters, destroyed 3 of their ships, with minimal equipment and no support." 7 hunters, Jake corrected. 1 was at the settlement. The officer's expression shifted to something like respect. "Impossible?" "Clearly not." Jake met his gaze steadily. "Is there a problem?" "No problem. I am merely revising my understanding of human capabilities." The officer gestured to his warriors. "We will repair the damage to your home. It is the least we can do. Not necessary. I insist. The Zenthari pay their debts." The officer paused. "The data my captain transmitted has already caused significant disruption. The Galactic Council is in emergency session. The Cravor being called to answer for treaty violations." "Good." Jake sat down heavily on a piece of debris, exhaustion finally catching up with him. "Maybe next time they will think twice before starting a war." The data also contained coordinates for this location. For Earth. The officer looked around at the empty landscape. "The Council believed Earth was abandoned, that humans had given up their homeworld. We did not give up. We stayed, some of us anyway." The officer was quiet for a moment. "How many humans remain on Earth?" Jake shrugged. "Thousands, maybe, scattered across the continents. People who refused to leave, who believed someone had to remember. And if the Cravor had succeeded, if they had destroyed the evidence and invaded human colonies, then we would have fought." Jake looked up at the alien officer. "That is what humans do. We fight." Over the next hours, Zenthar engineers worked on the ranch, repairing damage, replacing destroyed systems, upgrading others. Kira sat with Jake, her injuries being treated by her people's medics, who also insisted on treating Jake's shoulder. "What will you do now?" Kira asked. "Same thing I was doing before. Run my ranch. Grow my crops. Live my life." Jake watched the repairs progressing. "What about you?" "I returned to my fleet, but I will not forget this." She looked at him seriously. "You saved my life when you could have let me die. You fought when you could have run. You are a warrior worthy of honor. I am a farmer who did what needed doing. You are more than that." Kira stood as her commanding officer approached. "And the galaxy is about to learn it." The officer handed Jake a communication device. "This is a direct link to Zenthari Command. If you ever need assistance, if Earth is ever threatened, use it." "We will come." Jake took the device, surprised. "Why?" "Because today you reminded us that humanity is not helpless, that you have not surrendered or faded away." The Zenthar respects strength and courage. You have shown both. The officer saluted formally. We will inform the Galactic Council that Earth is not abandoned, that humans remain and claim this world, that any action against Earth will be considered an act of war against the Zenthari Alliance. You do not have to do that. Yes, we do. Honor demands it. The officer turned to his warriors. Prepare for departure. Kira touched Jake's shoulder gently. Thank you, Jake Miller of Earth, for the life debt, for the lesson, for reminding the galaxy who humans are. Tell them the truth, Jake said. Tell them we never left. We are still here, still watching, still waiting, and we are done being ignored. The Zenthari fleet departed as the sun set, their massive ships rising into the purple sky and vanishing among the stars. Jake stood alone again on his ranch, but it felt different now. The silence was not abandonment. It was patience. His communication console lit up suddenly, an incoming transmission. Jake activated it, and a human face appeared on the screen. A woman, military uniform, colonel's insignia. Mr. Miller, I am Colonel Lisa Hernandez, United Earth Defense Force. We received the Zenthari transmission. We have been trying to reach Earth for months, but communications have been blocked. The Cravor we now know. They wanted us isolated.
You are still out there? Jake felt hope surge. Humanity is still active.
We have colonies on 40 worlds, 7 battle fleets, and we have been preparing for exactly this kind of situation. The Cravor planned to hit us while we were scattered and confused. Thanks to you, we are ready. She smiled. We are coming home, Mr. Miller. All of us. Earth is about to become very crowded again. Jake looked out at his empty ranch, at the vast plains stretching to the horizon. There is room for everyone. We will need people like you. People who stayed. People who remember. She leaned forward. We are not going to hide anymore. Not going to be quiet. The galaxy is about to learn what happens when you underestimate humanity. About time, Jake said. Stand by for fleet arrival in 72 hours. And Mr. Miller, thank you for holding the line, for not giving up, for showing them we are still here. The transmission ended. Jake sat on his porch as darkness fell, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human fleets were turning toward home. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was learning that humanity had never truly left. They had just been waiting for the right moment to remind everyone why humans were never going to be pushed aside again. Jake Miller had come to this ranch to find peace, to escape the endless wars and conflicts. He had found it, for a while, but peace was not the same as surrender. Quiet was not the same as weakness. And when the galaxy came for him, for his home, for his world, he had shown them the truth. Humans do not run. Humans do not hide. Humans fight. And when you threaten their home, they fight harder than anyone expects. The wounded stranger had changed everything, just by crashing on his land. She had brought war to his doorstep. But she had also brought something more important. Recognition. Acknowledgement. A reminder to the galaxy that Earth and its people were still here, still strong, still capable of defending themselves. Jake went inside, started repairs on the systems the Zenthari had not fixed, and made plans for the future. In 3 days, the fleets would arrive. Earth would wake up, and the galaxy would never forget humanity again. But tonight, Jake Miller stood guard over his ranch, over his world, over his home, because that was what humans did. They protected what was theirs. They fought for what mattered. And they never, ever gave up. The stars shone bright above, and for the first time in years, Jake felt like he was not alone. Humanity was coming home. And the galaxy was about to learn that some species should never be underestimated, never be ignored, never be written off as irrelevant. The wounded stranger had brought war, but she had also brought hope. And in the end, that made all the difference. Over the next 3 days, Jake prepared. He repaired fences, cleaned equipment, restored buildings that had fallen into disrepair. If humanity was coming home, Earth needed to look like it had been cared for, not abandoned. His hands worked steadily, muscle memory from years of ranching guiding every movement. The communication device the Zenthari officer had given him remained silent, but Jake knew they were watching. Probably had ships in orbit, monitoring for Craver activity, ensuring no retaliation came before the human fleets arrived. It was a strange feeling, being protected by aliens who had once viewed his species as irrelevant. On the second day, more transmissions came through. Other humans on Earth, scattered across continents, reaching out after years of isolation. A family in what used to be called Australia, a community in Northern Europe. Scientists in Antarctica who had refused to abandon their research. All of them had stayed for different reasons, but they had one thing in common. They had believed Earth mattered. Jake joined the communications network, listening to their stories, sharing his own. They were not many, maybe 5,000 people across the entire planet, but they were enough to keep the fires burning, enough to maintain the claim that Earth belonged to humanity. On the morning of the third day, the sky changed. Jake stood on his porch, coffee in hand, and watched as the first human warship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. It was massive, bristling with weapons, its hull marked with the symbols of United Earth Defense Force. Then another appeared, and another. Within an hour, the sky was filled with human vessels, a fleet so large it blocked out the stars. Landing craft began descending, thousands of them heading for designated zones across the planet. Jake watched one approach his ranch, sleek and purpose-built, setting down in the cleared field where his crashed Zenthari visitor had landed just days before. The ramp lowered, and Colonel Hernandez stepped out, flanked by Marines in full combat armor. She walked toward Jake with confidence, a woman who had clearly spent years preparing for this moment. "Mr. Miller." She saluted, and Jake awkwardly returned it, his own service days long behind him. "Permission to come ashore?" "This is your planet too, Colonel. You do not need my permission. Maybe not legally, but you are the one who held it while we were gone. That means something." She looked around at the ranch, at the repairs, at the evidence of recent battle. The Zenthari gave us a full report. What you did here, what you accomplished with limited resources against superior numbers, it has already become legendary among the fleet. I did what anyone would do. No, you did what a soldier does, what a defender does. She gestured to her Marines. We have engineers, supplies, medical personnel. We will help rebuild not just your ranch, but every settlement on Earth. And we are bringing civilians. 50 million in the first wave. Earth is going to be inhabited again. Jake felt something in his chest, an emotion he had not felt in years. Pride, maybe, or vindication. What about the Kervor? The Galactic Council has issued sanctions. The Zenthari have declared that any Kervor ship approaching Earth will be destroyed. And we have positioned 3 battle groups in this system, just in case. She smiled grimly. They wanted to catch us isolated and weak. Instead, they revealed their intentions and united humanity like nothing has in decades. Every colony, every outpost, every human settlement is coming together. We are done being scattered prey. Good. Jake set down his coffee cup. What do you need from me? Your experience, your knowledge. You survived here when everyone else left. You know this planet better than anyone in the fleet. She paused. And you showed us something important, that humans do not need massive fleets to be dangerous. That even one person, properly motivated, can make a difference. We want you to help train the next generation of defenders, people who will make sure Earth is never threatened again. Jake thought about it. He had come here for peace, for quiet, for a life away from war. But war had found him anyway, and he had met it head-on. Maybe that was his purpose, not to escape conflict, but to be ready for it. I will help, he said finally, but I am keeping my ranch. Absolutely. We will build the training facility nearby. You can live your life and contribute when needed. She extended her hand. Welcome to the new Earth Defense Initiative, Mr. Miller. Jake shook her hand, sealing the agreement. Around them, more landing craft descended, bringing supplies, people, hope. Earth was waking up after a long sleep, and it would emerge stronger than before. In orbit, the Zenthari fleet maintained position alongside the human vessels, an alliance forged in battle, strengthened by mutual respect. Kira had sent a message, brief but meaningful. She would visit when her duties allowed, to see what became of the rancher who had saved her life. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, had assumed silence meant surrender, absence meant defeat. They had been wrong. Humans had been here all along, waiting, watching, preparing. And now they were ready to reclaim their place among the stars. Jake Miller went back to his daily routine, but everything had changed. The ranch was no longer a lonely outpost on a forgotten world. It was a symbol. Proof that humanity had never truly left, never truly given up. That even in isolation, even in silence, humans remained strong. The wounded stranger had changed everything, not just for Jake, but for all.